Good day to you all. Welcome to Philosophy Roulette number 87, where we read random philosophy papers off the internets and review them. Read and review. So, here we are on the Phil papers. Let's see if there's something new since, well, this morning, I guess. See what happens. Acta Analytica. Let's see what Acta Analytica has to say. Okay. This is 11 pages. This is 15 pages. On reading, 8 pages. I think I clicked on this before. I was like, that looks like a nice, easy paper to read, but it's not available. Reading, on reading. Oh, wait, maybe it is now. Let's see. Let's see how long this actually is. Oh, this is what happened. The file that they have linked there is not the right one. It's on Resonance. It's very, so that's what's happened. Yeah. So I have clicked on it. I did download it. I did look at it, and I was like, oops, this is the paper that is listed is not the right paper. All right, see some newer stuff even. Back to the Branching Future. Okay, 1 to 14. See what else we got. High individuals and where to find them towards a high world semantics for quantified modal logic. Should have done that on yesterday. It was 420. Is metaphysics, well, 24 pages. The mark of a good informant, 1 to 10. What the debasing demon teaches about us about wisdom. Oh, and I did well, did I do this one or did I do something else? Morean assertions and their normative function. I think I did something like this. Did I do this? I don't know. I did something very similar to this. People are really working on Morean assertions, or Moore's paradox, as it were. I guess they're calling it Morean assertion for the more general phenomena, and just not the draining in it. I don't believe it, but the something where you assert the something and then you say something about your belief or knowledge state that discounts it. Okay, so that's not available. 1 to 16. I'm slightly wary because I went for over an hour this morning and that was fine, but like, try not to go that long because I don't think anybody wants to watch me reading for over an hour. Some people might, but I've had a little bit of feedback saying not to. Archive for the Psychology of Religion. Bioessays, bioethics, history. So I've looked at a bunch of this stuff. Tao. Don't know if I looked at them recently. I haven't had too many in Urkentness. I could look at more Urkentness stuff. I like Urkentness. Foundations of Chemistry. Let's take a look at that. Because this is comparative philosophy. So that makes things get something from a different tradition. That's always it's usually very interesting. This looks like so this is 7 pages. That looks nice. Is this a Shunzi sort of a thing? We got 2 Shunzi papers, I guess. And you will have to forgive my reading of things in other languages because I have no idea how to actually pronounce them. The white horse is not a horse. Gong Sung Long Zi from Logical Philosophy. Is this? I think these are reviews, unfortunately. Dual virtue and yin yang, natural autonomy. Not there. Alright, so much for that. Foundations of Chemistry. Whom should we credit the discovery of isotopes? Macrochemistry review. Let's see. Overcoming skepticism about molecular structure by developing the concept of affordance. I'm a little wary of these things because reading out lots of scientific formula or logical formula is really sort of difficult. This is 12 pages. Let's see if it's available. Nope. Any teaching chemistry? It's not really philosophy, but hey, who might argue? I don't know what philosophy is, so why should I doubt that? I mean, my criteria for is philosophy is listed on fill papers at the moment. Okay, see what act analytic. Oh yeah, I was looking at act analytic already. Shucks. Slurs, stereotypes, and insults. Oh, that's too long to read, although I do kind of like the discussion of slurs and stereotypes and that things. Whoa, where's that 1 to 13? It said it was not... There's a 1 to... Oh, here it is. Okay. Had to load it. The mark of a good informant. Alright, let's see what this says. Nope. Okay. So, no luck so far today. I mean, I may just be forced to go back to, like, thought or analysis and grab something up there. Forced to read something short. Shucks. Frontiers in Psychology. I did something from them. Hastings Center reports bioethics. Okay, let's see. Maybe something from the Hastings Center. Ooh, look at this. It put out a bunch of stuff. HQ. Don't know what interpretation is. Maybe we should check that out. So, let's see. Medium personalized. So these are all, yeah, not entirely sure what's 2 pages, 3 pages. Alright. 2 to 2. Alright, I don't want to have to look at all that stuff. Interpretation. What is this? This looks like a scientific interpretation. Okay, I can't really go through a ton of sciencey stuff. Like, how do you interpret scientific data? So this looks like... okay. Journal of Academic Ethics, Journal of Animal Ethics. Ooh, animal ethics. I wonder if that's like the fish we were talking about the other day. What is it to be a happy fish? Oh, nothing. That's only a review is the only one. Let's see what goes on. We're starting to scrape the bottom again. We're getting a few pages and I think I've looked at much of... Wait, is this the same thing? Or do I have to go the other direction? No. You see, we're back to like Act Analytica again. No. Oh, I was supposed to go the other way. Alright. Ooh, philosophy and literature. Let's see what this is. Haven't done a paper from these folks. Maybe it's because all the papers are too long. This is 15 exactly. Let's see. It's like 14, 15. Oh, they don't have short papers. That's too bad. 7. What is good ancient philosophy? That sounds nice. I'd like to know what good philosophy is. 13 pages? Oh, this might not be so bad. Alright, let's see if I can find one of these to read. Come on. What is... Yay. Alright. Thank you. Is this, The whole thing. Okay, this looks good. Cool. What did I just do? Alright, so if you're live and you want to catch up, you can always go in the chat and grab the link out of the chat by typing !paper in the chat, and the good old Nightbot will return with this link. Okay, so, oops, not this one. There we go. Okay. Notes and fragments. What good is ancient philosophy? Oh, I misread that. I thought it said what is good. I read what is good ancient philosophy. This is what good is ancient philosophy. Alright. I'm already losing it. Sorry, folks. What of value can we philosophers of the contemporary world possibly learn from studying ancient philosophy? I mean, what can we learn? What really do we think we're doing even when we do any philosophy? I'm not sure. Of course, we often lecture about ancient writings in our classes. The Greeks blazed many trails through an uncharted philosophical wilderness, and their first steps still guide the first steps of today's tenderfoot thinkers. What better guide than Socrates to conduct our students through the brambles of definition? Maybe a lot of people. I don't know. Socrates is, Plato's not always so easy to understand. What better companion than Aristotle to help those considering virtues and vices for the first time? I don't know, maybe Confucius. But then again, he's almost as old as Aristotle. But what better introduction to the existential condition than Epictetus? There we go. But the question I raise is not what of value can we impart to our students, but what of value can ancient philosophers impart to us? To paraphrase Tertullian, what indeed has Athens to do with New York? Yeah. Oh no, I'm in New York. I think Athens is nice. In offering my answer to this question, I hope to show that the best answer might not be a laundry list of knowledge and skills. It is unlikely that ancient philosophers will advance our knowledge. Lucretius will not reveal secrets missed by Fermi. Aristotle will not show us logical theories overlooked by Quine. It's a very different logic. That doesn't mean Quine would get it right either. Zeno will not refute the calculus. No, Zeno's dead. He can't refute anything. Any knowledge the ancients first achieved has long been confirmed, explored, restated, and trivialized. No. Well, I guess any knowledge, not like wisdom. So we've got already a distinction here between knowledge and something other than regular knowledge. So I think it's any facts the ancients first discovered has long been confirmed, explored, restated, and trivialized. So not knowledge, but like facts. Maybe there's something, knowledge is bigger, but the same goes for skills. Sextus Empiricus, though perhaps virtuosic for his time, now seems crude, repetitive, and riddled with outrageous assumptions. A Socratic Exchange, upon being clarified, disambiguated, fleshed out, and otherwise made fit for our modern tastes, may or may not be found to hold water, but whatever the case, the literal results seldom seem worth the effort. I doubt that one of the long-lost dialogues of Aristotle miraculously unearthed today and submitted pseudonymously to a second-tier journal would pass a blind review. Yeah. But I mean, it would be in ancient Greek. I think it obvious, however, that we must be getting something from them. The publication rate over the last 50 years of new titles dealing with Greek philosophy testifies to an unflagging interest. We may treat the ancients either as our equals or not. I note as a historical aside that most Roman and medieval writers did not treat the Greeks as equals. Many Romans thought of the Greeks as philosophically or morally superior to their own degenerate age. Thus, they tended to quote Greeks liberally and uncritically. Irreconcilable points of disagreement were simply ignored. Medieval authors, with a few exceptions, felt superior to the Greeks, because religious thinkers tended to discount all speculation unenlightened by revelation. Even to the most sympathetic defenders of philosophy, Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, the Greeks were examples of the best that well-intentioned humans could hope to achieve without a sacred text to correct them. And to unsympathetic religious writers, the Greeks stood as object lessons on the error of prideful speculation. Any allegiance given to the ancients by religious thinkers was highly contingent. In contrast, we now seem to favor treating Greeks as somehow our equals. Sometimes we treat them as colleagues with whom we engage philosophically, and at other times we treat them as equal but utterly alien. When we see them as colleagues, we let the principle of charity guide us as we subject ancient prose passages to a cleansing process that yields a disambiguated, quantified, valid, but usually unsound argument. The analytic philosophers who favor this approach tend to conflate history and think of each issue as hanging suspended in a timeless philosophical moment. They see the separation of two philosophers by 25 centuries as an inconsequential accident. Philosophical superiority of one work over another signifies proximity to a solution, not relative nearness in time. On the other hand, when we treat them as equal but alien, we devote much of our energy to simply comprehending the questions they addressed, the tools they used, and the results that they achieved. Contextualists like Pierre Hadot and a host of others have turned to the understanding of earlier thinkers on their own terms. The Cambridge series Ideas in Context, for example, while not about ancient philosophy, stands as a testament to this trend. This historical approach presumes, correctly in my opinion, that ideas don't transplant directly from one context to another. As much as these modern attitudes have to recommend them, they have their disadvantages. On the one hand, the ancient Greek philosopher, spruced up by modern analysis, often comes across not as a philosopher in his own right, but as a convenient excuse or occasion for the modern writer to do something altogether different. In many ways, moderns resemble those medieval commentators who disguised their own philosophy as Aristotle. The analytics, in short, abuse and discard the ancients without opening up to them. Is that fair to the analytics? They do that to everybody. They're not unique in doing that to the ancient Greeks. They detemporalize everybody and everything, and so this is not a unique deficiency in their treatment of the ancients, but analytic philosophy definitely detemporalizes everything, and almost always for worse. So it's not unique in their appraisal of the ancients. And really, why are we doing any work at all in philosophy, but as a convenient excuse to what? I mean, everyone in philosophy is doing it because they have an axe to grind. No one died for want of a philosophy textbook or a philosophy paper. That's not the sort of thing that kills people. I mean, it might drive you crazy, but it's not the thing that you don't starve to death if you didn't read that philosophy quote from somebody. So all of the philosophy, in some sense, unless you're doing something pretty practical, is a convenient excuse for something. You're trying to do something also. I expect the author to get here to this sort of point also, but I don't see this right here as a so much as an anti-analytic method, because all philosophers all have to have some sort of excuse to do it. Otherwise, I mean, there's no real reason to sit around writing and reading all the time. I mean, so I'm not sure. The detemporalization is a problem, but that's a general analytic problem. But just using them as a convenient excuse for something, I think that's most of the time, except someone who's explicitly trying to get up in some ancient philosopher's head. Then you wonder why they're doing that, though. Okay, the other extreme is almost as bad. When the ancients become too closely linked to their context, they become curiosities or specimens whose antics one follows with interest, pity, or affection, but who never achieve vital presence for us. Yet you're putting them in the zoo, basically. It's like a nature hike. You're out looking, trying to see what's out in the world, and you're like, ooh, look at this natural history. And so, oddly enough, the egalitarian treatment of ancient philosophers has reduced their thoughts to mere points of comparison with ours. Mentioning them has become just a coy way of talking about ourselves. Were we to learn from them, we would have to listen, to ponder their antiquated ideas, and it is not obvious where the profit lies in that. Yeah, so this is like a nature show where they're trying to um, make some sort of like social commentary, like, oh look, they're having like I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen these things where they have basically like little like, it's basically reality TV imposed upon the social structure of some like, like prairie dog or whatever. And maybe what we understand is like infighting and blah blah blah, but it's really just talking about ourselves with prairie dog, the cute little animals there instead. Uh, I know at the zoo, when they filmed the zoo, I once overheard somebody say that they got very annoyed with one of the producers because they could see that the way they were filming were trying to make it look like two animals were arguing with each other when really there was like good 6 feet apart. So like they positioned the camera to make it look like they were right at each other's face, but really there was space between them, so they were just sort of yelling out into the space. But like the person got all insulted because they were the trainer, and they were like, well, if they were in a fight, that would reflect poorly on how we were treating them, that they were unhappy animals. And they didn't like that. They were like, no, 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 our animals are happy and like well cared for. So, yeah, so it's like the Animal Planet trying to drum up a reality show BS. Is how we're treating the ancients, which is funny. I don't know if it's fair to the authors really who do such things, but at the other extreme, yes, that would be the extreme detemporalizing them, as opposed to then at the other extreme is making them completely just as petty as us and looking at our petty stupidities using them. So, okay. To see how listening could help us, let us turn things around and ask what we think takes place within our students when they learn from us. If all they can do is to quote back our lectures to us, we wonder if they have learned anything. We spice up our own lectures with humor and factoids to hold their interest, but we feel disappointed if they miss the point. Likewise, if we reduce the ancients to a collection of quotes, we may wonder if we have learned anything from them. Might we not have missed some point to ancient philosophy? I'm sure we've missed lots of points. As I suggested above, we may have gone astray by supposing that we can learn only facts or skills from ancient philosophers. To recite facts is not to learn, but to preserve, in much the same way that medieval copyists did for devotional exercises. One preserves only words, phrases, or sentences. Learning may work quite differently. I think Michel de Montaigne, what did I say? Is it Michel or Michel? Michel de Montaigne provides an odd insight about how to learn from the ancient Greeks. He read every shred of Greek philosophy he could find. He meditated over their words. He marveled at their wisdom. He conversed with their books. He copied their most intriguing thoughts into notebooks. He committed long passages to memory, and he borrowed freely from them in his own writing. But, as hard as it may be for us to accept, he fiercely insisted that he himself produced the resulting wholly original thoughts, even when he obviously plagiarized his idea from others. It is as though he said, "The Greeks thought their thoughts, I think mine, and lo, these thoughts are the same." Yeah, why would he say such a thing? That's a little odd. Well, maybe his definition of plagiarism was just different. I don't know. Here's how Montaigne describes his unrepentant thefts. Among my many borrowings, I take delight in being able to conceal the occasional one, masking it and distorting it to serve a new purpose. I give that one some peculiar slant with my own hand, so that they may all be less purely and simply someone else's. I conceal my larcenies and disguise them. Like those who disguise horses, I stain their mane and their tail, and sometimes I poke out an eye. If their first master used them as amblers, I make them trot. If used for the saddle, I use them for packs. Okay. Perhaps the ritual of tracking down term papers filched from the internet has jaded us. The fact is, we may wish to chastise Montaigne. Plato said it first, and you know it. So if you deliberately repeat his words, you cannot even pretend to be truly thinking for yourself. But suppose Montaigne is honest when he insists that he quotes the ancients not for the authority they lend, but for the marvelous coincidence of those ancient ideas with his own. Then he has an attitude quite alien to the one ingrained in us. This attitude, I think, may reveal indeed what Athens has to do with New York. Actually, I don't really understand what you mean by this. I don't buy this right here, because I definitely, when I'm quoting people, it's just because I really don't want to have to explain myself. I'm just too tired. It takes too much effort, and there's too much work into thinking up some idea and then spelling it out. I'd rather just reference some other people and make you happy that, like, when I reference them, it's not because I, a lot of times, it's like, yes, they deserve to be, referenced for having good ideas and doing a lot of good work, sure. And I hope someone, if I have any good ideas, someone would reference me when they do it. But a lot of times it's also, the other half of it is to argue, to reconstruct their argument is just so much effort. And it's like, I could do it, but I'm just sort of like, well, all right, they said it first. Go read them if you want to take their word for it, great. If not. But when you quote the ancients, not for the authority they lend, but for the coincidence of whose ancient ideas with your own. Yeah, you're quoting the people because it's not that you stole the idea from them. You might not have stolen the idea from them. It's just that they said it better than you. And so you're just using their shorthand at that point. So, yeah, we came to the same thought, and therefore it's like I don't give them priority if I didn't read it there, but yeah, I give their rhetoric priority, but it's like when you quote someone, I mean, and I do mean to quote them, I don't mean to steal from them, but I understand what Montaigne is saying here. It's like you cannot produce. He may have thought for himself, but Plato just said it better, so he's using Plato's words. It's a question of efficiency. And he's saying also that he's using them. It's like he's deploying their words as arguments. So it's like he's deploying his thoughts in their words as arguments. Okay, so that's what I think Montaigne's saying, which I find Montaigne is always very reasonable. To understand any of the great minds of Greece, we must set aside the accumulated opinions of recent centuries and listen to Greek voices speaking from a distant exotic experience. I mean, famously, their color descriptions are hard to understand, but I mean, I don't want to beg the question that it is so distant and exotic. But that's really okay, what they're saying, but still, I wonder about this claim here. So when we read Aristotle on motion, we explore an archaeological dig beneath the foundations of all we think we know. If we take him seriously, that is, if we reason actively and critically with him, rather than us as errors from our smug post-Newtonian vantage point, he must amaze us with his clarity and the consciousness he brings to naive perception. All our lives we have known how things really move. We have mistakenly come to believe that we even experience motion that way. We think we perceive gravity or inertia or velocity, but Aristotle forces us to relearn a more wide-eyed experience, that of weight resistance and local motion. Only after seeing the world once again as Aristotle permits us to see it do we come to appreciate the hard-won anti-Aristotelian notions that we have taken for granted since childhood. I'd like to point out that I did some work on Aristotle and motion. He actually had Galilean Relativity, which is basically all the relativity we mostly use in our everyday life. That passage is it's certainly at odds with everything else he says about motion, but it's actually pretty clear that he has Galilean relativity down, because he makes use of the boat example. Like if you're on a boat and something's moving on the boat, it's moving on the boat relative to the boat, not to the water. So he calls it a portable place. So the idea that places themselves are portable. So aside on that, Aristotle actually was not. He was in that one passage, he was very, very modern. Okay, anyway, Aristotle's finite world is not ours. In his world, continuous substances seek their natural places. The concepts are quite unfamiliar, yet isn't ours the truly strange world, an infinite universe wherein wave packets probabilistically exist in relative space. We see neither of these worlds, but due to an accident of history, we inhabit the latter. Yet when we make the effort to negotiate the conceptual twists and turns of Aristotle's world, we momentarily live in it. And in that brief visit, we recall what we should have been all along, or at least what we once swore to become, lovers of wisdom. Okay, so if you can see Aristotle's, sort of worldview, that's what you become, a lover of wisdom then? Perhaps. And I don't know if we all should have been all along or once swore to become. I didn't swear. The ancients have served as paradigms throughout history. more than any help they may have given to their hearts, their heirs in solving the puzzles of each new age. They have stood as models or ideals against whom each new generation measured itself. Each ancient thinker is strikingly unique, each an archetype. Probably every philosopher who has looked backwards has found one figure to have been outstanding interest. Among the Greek archetypal philosophers, we find pure mystics, rationalists, empiricists, and skeptics. We find aesthetes and ascetics, cynics and theoreticians, materialists and idealists, relativists and absolutists. We find not just heroes but villains, quintessential charlatans alongside quintessential martyrs. But in all this diversity, what we find so charming about them all must surely be their sheer ebullience at being just what they are. Seems a lot of sort of rose-colored glasses right there, but it's true. I mean, that's not to say the author is wrong here. This is quite how they're treated. We ask here how the ancients can educate us. Others have often asked the same thing of us. Do not administrators demand we prove to them how we have educated our students? In response, don't we protest that the worth of an undergraduate philosophy class does not reduce to metrics about knowledge and skills? The worth of our own classes, we feel, lies in the change they have wrought upon our students as persons. Not what the students know or do, but what they ultimately become. Therein lies their education. Well, then may it not also be that way with us? The Greek philosophers have shown in clean, bold strokes not what to conclude, nor what to question, nor even how to reason, but rather what it is to live a truth-seeking, questioning, and rational life. They remind us what it means to be philosophers, but not the sort of career philosophers we meet at conferences. So this is the way of life theory from. Okay, so it's a form of life argument then. Probably not Wittgensteinian form of life though. Although maybe this is a Wittgensteinian sort of form of life thingy here. To show you how to go about your work. Not any particular knowledge or skill, but in some sense of how to have a more well-rounded ability to integrate that what you know and how you live your life might be something of worth that this author here is indicating. Okay. Aristotle bickers with Plato over where forms exist, all the while presupposing that only the forms could explain why things are so gosh darned intelligible. Their disputes over the proper explanation for knowledge must set us to wondering, what would it be like trying to solve that problem? It must feel like how refreshing must it be to ponder how we come to know so marvelously much about the world. Oh, come on, we're so arrogant nowadays. The idea that we don't think we're trying to actually figure stuff out for what it really is right now. We're just as these guys back in the day. It's all relative. They thought they knew more than the people in the past. They knew people in the future would know more than them. But everyone always thinks they're right. That's just human ego for you. Alas, we moderns or postmoderns are far too smart to know anything at all. No, people are pretty arrogant. I disagree with this. This might be like virtue signaling. We fret and worry about whether we know, not how. Yeah, this is the sort of... Well, again, the author is correct, but I'm just a little sick with the virtue signaling of the general population. Oh, we don't know anything, blah, blah, blah. That's not true. They act like they know lots of stuff, even though they say differently. And when that question bores us, we wonder if it is possible for any organism to know, or for a machine, or for the Chinese nation. And before that speculation can even begin, we must settle the question of how we would recognize a good answer if we found one. We professional doubters take well to our pallid profession, all our creative projects sicklied or with the pale cast of thought. Yes, century after grinding century of self-doubt has indeed made cowards of us all. Speak for yourself. How would we feel for one moment if we just set aside our fussy qualms and begged the damned epistemological question, and to do it with a clear conscience? Thus we turn to the Greeks for something akin to salvation. Yes, because of their, the distance in their philosophy, they're not burdened by our modern nonsense. When we spend time with the ancient Greeks, even when we seem to come away from them empty-handed, we renew our vision of our professional selves. Caught in the meshes of academic careers, we often forget our calling. Surely no one endures the dissertation process in philosophy for the money, the fame, or the power it promises to bring. Yeah, that's true. Yet for our subsequent working lives, we chase these very things spurred on by those modern Erinyes. I don't know how to say that. Tenure and promotion committees. From one call for papers to another, we claw our way over heads of envious colleagues to claim our rightful place in the pantheon of trivial personalities. Well, this person can write well, at least. Trivial personalities decomposing in the eternity of print. Yeah, who are they quoting here? This is okay. That's not on the page, but yeah. This is philosophy and literature. These people. I mean, I was criticizing earlier people, especially the logicians, for being formulaic in their writing. It's just like repetitive, and you can see these butchered sentences because they're translating logic into English. This is like the complete opposite of that. This is I just noticed the chat box is busted, but this is the complete opposite of that. This person really knows how to put some sentences together. I mean, I don't completely agree with the philosophy, but it's just sort of funny. This is like so not translated from some logical nonsense. This is obviously someone who thinks in terms of literature and really pulling meaning out of words. It's entertaining to me, at least. The difference in the experience of reading this paper versus reading something that is like logically structured, and I don't mean like logical in the sense of it's from like formal. They're like they deformalized it to write the paper, so it was originally in like formal form, in like logical form. All right. But when we turn from this bleak vista and look to ancient Greece, we see philosophy in its purest state, the products of zealous truth-seeking, unconcerned with gainful employ. I mean, this is, like I said, some more rose-colored glasses. I'm not sure if this is yeah, it's like they lived in a slave society. So it's like if we were all rich, wealthy people with a bunch of slaves, and we could not sit around and just argue philosophy all day and not have to worry about money. I mean, you could claim this is a late-stage capitalism biting us in the butt right here. Maybe society should be different, but I mean, we shouldn't decontextualize the ancient Greek philosophers, because that was also a product of their society. I mean, their society is well documented. I'm not an expert, but I do know that, I mean, they had lots of slaves. I mean, only certain people had rights, and that's how you can get lots of free time, is if someone else is doing all the work for you because of something you didn't earn. Okay. Reading the ancients increases our intellectual freedom. We often feel trapped inside the cubicle of our scholarship, able to see beyond our nose, but not by much. The Greeks, by being exactly who they were, have boosted us up for a peek beyond our blinkering academic walls to a wider horizon. It's true, they were not academics, in our sense of academics. While they do not quite show us infinity, they do reveal a liberating range of possibilities, which, having once been glimpsed, subversively reshape our possibilities. Each new venture into their thought sweeps aside known insurmountable barriers and gives us permission to think afresh. This newfound freedom can energize. As we tag alongside the ancients on their sometimes quixotic journeys, their discoveries thrill us, even if their discoveries don't hold up. Their naive demonstrations embolden us. Their vast arrogant systems awe us. Their eccentric assumptions intrigue us. Their prescient guesses elate us, so much that we return to New York from even a short stint in Athens, transformed and inspired. We have rediscovered how to speculate. Okay, I mean, look at, again, on the writing philosophy. This paragraph here is sort of repetitive short sentences that build up to a point, just after these nice long sentences here that had like these big old words in them. So it's like, this is a pacing right here that, to create a philosophical point, is not something you get in other philosophy journals, I don't think. This is quite nice to read, as opposed to some of the more technical stuff, as I've said before. So I propose this answer. By apprenticing to the ancient Greek philosophers as they go about being philosophers, freshly and with vigor, we may each of us become at heart a speculative philosopher. To speculate means to occupy and reflect on alternative world views at will, to propose bold hypotheses, to recklessly seek truth, to shun the safe haven of trivialities. A good dose of ancient intellectual heroism is the antidote for the poisons of postmodern ennui and analytic pedantry. We have too long been anesthetized into mediocrity by that cliche. Every philosophical thesis is either trivial or false. Well, what of it? The Greeks, at least, weren't trivial. Yeah, again, and you can see fancy words and big fancy words down here. These smaller, like, hard-hitting sentences were up here. And then with the nice conclusion sentence right there. Well, what of it? Boom, the Greeks, at least, weren't trivial. Sort of claiming that we're all trivial nowadays. Or at least people the author doesn't like are all trivial. If the human race survives much longer, it's a big if on that one, we too will someday be someone's ancients. What kind of exemplars will we be for them? Will those to come still model themselves after the Greeks, or will our own apathetic failure to preserve their writings have silenced that distant, thinning voice once and for all? Will those future philosophers then imitate us? If so, will that be a good thing? I have no idea. Yeah, it was Virginia Woolf for that nice quote earlier. So, will those futurists then imitate us? Why would they? Yeah. I want to go back to this Montaigne thing. He says, I give some peculiar slant with my own hand, so that they may all be less purely and simply someone else's. I conceal my larcenies and disguise them, like those who disguise horses. I mean, we've got lots of we've got cleverly disguised donkeys nowadays. Apparently, disguise horses. I stain their mane and their tail. Oh well, this is probably to like thieve them. Like you steal a horse and someone says, well, my horse is like this color and that color. And you say, well, this horse didn't. So someone stole a horse. Is probably a much bigger problem in the past than it is now. Although I don't know, maybe it still is a problem nowadays. And sometimes I poke out an eye. If their first master used them as amblers, I make them trot. If used for the saddle, I use them for packs. Again, this is sort of what indeed Athens has to do with New York. Well, so the ancient world, you're using them to actually give yourself a boost, like give yourself a push up. And so I think that's what Montaigne is saying here. So you're not stealing from them, you're using them as your jumping off point, your rocket ship. And I think that's what the author in the end wanted to say about the ancients, and that's what this point from Montaigne is. It would have been nice if they had pulled in a little bit of Montaigne right at the end to wrap up the paper, because that would have been clever right there to like pull it back to the sort of more beginning part. Yeah. So I think that would have been a nice thing to pull together, but otherwise, I mean, this was it was more entertaining to read and say out loud into stuff than some of the other papers. I've been doing high analytic stuff. But what indeed has happened in New York? I guess it's so what exactly is the point? It's that, I mean, we can't all be slave-owning, landed people. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, just be rich and then you can worry about philosophy all day. That would be nice to have lots of money. It's just not going to happen, at least not yet for a long time. Again, if the human race survives much longer, we don't know about that one. It's like the blasting off point. So where are you going to put your blasting off point? Will anyone put their blasting off point in the like middle of like analytic philosophy? No, because it's such a interconnected mess of different concepts. There's no like stable ground there. In some sense, the long dead history of the Greeks has thinned it out so that you only have these sort of like this mythological characters or whatever, the archetypal characters that we have. Only that it's been thinned out so much. Only that what remains now, it seems that way. Perhaps at the time there was journals and stuff and a lot of it's been lost, I'm sure. So, but if you're going to have a blasting off point, you need like foundations. And so what will the foundations of future philosophy be? will foundations of future philosophy be? And I think that's really what the sort of maybe one of the questions behind this essay is. What will future philosophers then do? Where will they place their footing if they want to, again, push themselves up and go someplace new? In that case, we should look at philosophy from the past and see how it gets used to really boost what we have to say and how we think about stuff. I think that's a good question. So this is a nice essay. It's a nice question. It's a little thin on what we're going to do about that. I mean, it's like, well, what if the Greeks at least weren't trivial? And then this paper ends. Like, how are they not trivial? I mean, in some sense, how are we to get ourselves a foundation that will support us for really taking off and doing something different? And you have to go back to the Montaigne. You have to like really sort of almost damage what you're working on, but it has to be strong enough to withstand it. Like you're poking out an eye, you're painting it, you're really covering up. You're really doing something of real sneaky to them, is in some sense what's going on. And if you can be this sneaky to make it not obvious how you've concealed your larcenies and disguised them. But that's the issue. It has to be strong enough that it can withstand this sort of thing. And is the philosophy today really up to getting basically bastardized in some way? Really, like, can it take a hit and still keep going? I don't know. All the stuff you read, some of it's good, some of it's not so good. A lot of it's just very narrow, and if it's very narrow, it can't really take a hit because it only depends on that narrow little bit of philosophy it deals with. Which is okay. I mean, we need to do that stuff. We have to figure stuff out. But what's going to be the pillars that create support in the future? Okay. That would, of course, that's a little too hard to answer. You can't really ask that of the author here. But the question is, what is this delight that Montaigne speaks of? I take delight. What is that? Sorry, I thought that was a highlighter at first. You have to... This is the real question. You're taking delight in doing something to the ancient philosophy. And how are we to understand that? And this author said that, I mean, you're using them to see them as non-trivial, and they're just sort of like doing stuff and like all seems good, and they're unconcerned with our modern day-to-day problems. But I mean, Montaigne is not a modern person. I mean, Montaigne died, was it 100,000 years ago or something? Long time ago, whatever it was. So I think that's really the problem. Exactly what is delightful of it? What is not trivial? What was delightful in doing something with that stuff? And that would be more of again, talking about what we need as a society now of people working on philosophy issue, but it's okay. Alright, that's enough for now. It's like almost 50 minutes. That one was going a little longer than I expected. Anywho, nice essay. I will be back, I guess, in the morning. So, hope everyone has a good rest of their day. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.